At my parents' anniversary dinner, everything was going as usual. My dad was cracking jokes, my mom was smiling, and everyone was laughing. It was the perfect family dinner. The candles flickered softly on the table, and the conversation was light, filled with old memories and laughter. My sister raised her glass for a toast. To Mom and Dad, for raising the most loving family, she said, her voice full of affection. Everyone raised their glasses. I took a sip, but something inside me churned. Then, out of nowhere, my sister added, and for raising an only child. My mom laughed, raising her glass again, and my dad smiled, looking at her with a soft, loving gaze. But I couldn't let it go. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, and everyone fell silent. I looked around the table, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of the words I was about to say. I have something to say, I announced, my voice steady but full of tension. I'm not an only child. The silence in the room was deafening. The smile faded from my dad's face, and my mom froze, her hand still holding her glass. My sister's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. What do you mean? My mom asked, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath, knowing the next words would change everything. I have a brother, I said, the truth finally spilling out. A brother you never told me about. The room was still, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. The weight of my words hung in the air like a thick fog. My sister's mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mom's hand trembled slightly as she set down her glass, her face pale as though I had just slapped her. My dad was the first to speak. His voice was low, almost too quiet. What? What are you talking about? I'm talking about Michael, I said, my voice wavering just a little. The brother you never told me about. The one you kept a secret. I glanced at my mom. You never told me about him. Not a single word. Why? My mother's face flushed, and for the first time that evening, she seemed completely lost for words. My dad stood up, his hand running through his hair. This is not the time, he said, his voice rising, though it was strained. No, this is exactly the time. I snapped. Why now? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that I had a brother? Why did you keep him from me? My dad took a deep breath, his face hardening. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We were trying to protect you, he said. His words felt like a punch in the stomach. Protect me from what? From the truth, from the reality of a brother I didn't know I had. Protect me, I repeated, my voice shaking with disbelief. You kept him from me for my own good. Ellie, please, my mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. She walked towards me, her hands outstretched as if to calm me. It wasn't like that. It wasn't that simple. I stepped back, shaking my head. Then what was it? What was so bad that you had to keep this secret for so many years? How long have you known? How long have I been living a lie? The silence between us was deafening. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to fall into an unknown abyss. Your brother. My dad's voice cracked. Michael wasn't he? He wasn't supposed to be part of our life? I looked at him, confused and hurt. What do you mean? Was he a mistake? Is that it? He closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again, meeting my gaze with a mixture of guilt and shame. He was adopted. When you were young, before we had you. We didn't know how to explain it, and we didn't know if you were ready to hear it. I stared at him, my breath catching in my throat. Adopted, but why didn't you tell me? I could have known. I could have known about him. You were so young, Ellie, my mom interjected, her voice soft. We didn't want to confuse you. We thought it was best to leave it in the past. We thought it was over. But then life, it took a different turn. And we didn't know how to bring it up. I took a step back, feeling the weight of their words. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together, but they didn't make sense. So, where is he now? Where is Michael? My dad looked away, and for the first time, he seemed unsure of himself. He disappeared. He left when he turned 18. We tried to find him, but we lost contact. We didn't know where he went, and we didn't know how to reach him. I was ashamed of how things turned out. And I didn't want you to know that part of our story. I felt the anger surge up in me again. So, you decided that the best thing to do was to just leave me in the dark to let me grow up thinking I was the only child. I'm sorry, Ellie, my mom said, her voice breaking. We thought we were doing what was best. We thought we were protecting you. But you weren't protecting me, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You were keeping me from knowing the truth. You were keeping me from knowing who I really am. The days following that conversation were nothing short of chaotic. I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire world had been turned upside down. The house felt colder, emptier, like it had lost its warmth the moment my father revealed the truth. I had never imagined that something so big could have been hidden from me all these years. But here I was, standing in the ruins of everything I thought I knew about my family. I didn't speak much to my parents in the days that followed. My mother would try to engage with me, but I could barely meet her gaze. And my father, he seemed to be doing his best to avoid me altogether. He was a different man now, no longer the strong, dependable figure I had once trusted. Now, I only saw the man who had kept such a monumental secret from me for so long. But it was Michael, my brother, that I couldn't stop thinking about. Where was he? Why had he left? And why had my parents kept him a secret from me for all these years? The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. I needed answers, and I couldn't rely on my parents to give them to me. One evening, I found myself sitting at the desk in my room, scrolling through an old email address book. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I had to try. I had to find Michael, if only to make sense of the past. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Sophia Miller, I typed into the search bar. It was the name that had appeared in the letter, the name that had opened this entire can of worms. I didn't know if Sophia had any connection to Michael, but it was a lead I had to follow. A few minutes later, my search turned up something. A Facebook profile. The name matched, and the photo looked like it was from a few years ago. I hesitated, but then I clicked. The page was public, and what I found made my heart race. Sophia Miller wasn't just some past lover of my father's. She had been involved with Michael. They were connected in a way that I hadn't expected. There were photos of her and Michael together, smiling in what appeared to be family photos. Is this real? I muttered to myself, staring at the screen. The truth seemed to slip through my fingers like sand. How could they have kept all this from me? How could I have been so blind? The more I scrolled, the more I uncovered messages between Sophia and Michael, all from a time when my parents thought he was gone, when they thought they had lost him for good. He had been in contact with Sophia all along. And from the messages, it seemed like he was trying to find his way back to us. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Michael wasn't lost. He hadn't disappeared. He had been reaching out, trying to reconnect. But why hadn't he come to me? Why hadn't he come to the family? Was he as angry and hurt as I was? I sent Sophia a message, not sure what to expect. Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm Michael's sister. I'm looking for him, and I need to know where he is. Please, I just want to understand. I sat there, staring at the screen for what felt like an eternity. My heart pounded in my chest. Was this the right thing to do? Was I intruding on something I didn't understand? But deep down, I knew I had to find Michael. I had to talk to him, no matter what had happened between him and the family. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, I heard the notification sound. A reply from Sophia. I know who you are, Ellie. Michael's been looking for you too. But it's not easy for him to come back after all that's happened. He's hurt. We all are. But he's not lost anymore. He's just trying to figure out where he fits in all this. Her words stung, but they also gave me hope. Michael was out there. He was alive, and he wanted to reconnect. But he was hurt, just like me. The next few days were spent waiting. Waiting for a response from Michael, waiting for some sort of direction, some clue on how to bring my family back together. But as much as I tried to prepare myself for whatever the outcome might be, I knew one thing for certain: finding Michael would be the first step in healing all the wounds that had been left behind. The questions would be answered, and perhaps, just perhaps, we could start rebuilding what had been broken. The days that followed were filled with anxious waiting. Every moment spent looking at my phone, hoping for a response from Michael, was torture. I tried to push the fear away, but it lingered like a shadow in the back of my mind. Was Michael out there, waiting for the right time to reconnect, or had he truly moved on from everything? Was he as angry with us as we were with him? Sophia's message had given me some hope, but it didn't answer the questions I had been asking for so long. The waiting felt endless, and every minute felt like it stretched on forever. It was late one night, after a long day of ignoring the tension between my parents, that I finally got the message I'd been waiting for. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw Michael's name on the screen. Ellie, the message began. I've seen your message. I'm not sure where to start, but I'm ready to talk. I'm staying at a place outside the city. It's not much, but it's mine. If you want to see me, we can meet. I felt a rush of relief flood over me, and I knew, deep down, that this was the moment I had been waiting for. Michael wasn't lost anymore. He was ready to be found. I quickly typed back. I'm coming. I'll be there as soon as I can. The drive to the place where Michael was staying felt like an eternity. The city lights blurred past me as I focused on the road, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What would he look like? Would he be the same person I remembered, or would time and distance have changed him beyond recognition? Would he even want to talk to me? To us when I arrived, the small house he was staying in was tucked away at the edge of the city, far from the life I had known. It was a modest place, nothing like the house we had grown up in. But it was his. And that was enough for me. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering in my chest. A few moments passed before I heard footsteps approaching. The door creaked open, and there he was. Michael. He looked different, but not in a way I could put into words. His face was harder, his eyes a little colder, but there was a familiarity to him that made my chest tighten. His gaze met mine, and for a second, we just stood there, neither of us knowing what to say. Ellie, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't expect you to come. I had to, I whispered, stepping inside as he moved aside to let me in. I didn't know where else to go. I had to find you. He nodded, his expression unreadable. I know. I've been trying to figure out what to say for a long time. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about everything. But I think we need to. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and painful. But in that moment, I knew it was the beginning of something that could change everything. For so long, I had felt the emptiness of Michael's absence, the gap in our family. But now, we were here, face to face, and I knew we could begin the process of healing. The silence between us was thick, but it wasn't as suffocating as before. It felt like the air had shifted the moment Michael opened the door, like there was a possibility, however small, that we could fix what had been broken. But I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were too many years of resentment, too many questions left unanswered. We sat down at a small table in the corner of the room, the dim light from the single lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place: sadness, regret, maybe even fear. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready for," I said, trying to ease the tension. "But I need to know why you left. Why you disappeared without a word." Michael exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't know what else to do, Ellie. I didn't know how to face everything. I didn't know how to face you, or Mom, or Dad. I felt like a stranger in my own family." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. The thing is, I had always believed I was the one left behind, the one abandoned. But hearing him say those words, it hit me in a way I hadn't expected. Michael had been feeling the same way all these years, carrying the same weight of silence, the same burden of being forgotten. "I couldn't stay in a place where I didn't belong," Michael continued, his voice low and strained. "I was lost. I thought leaving would make it easier for everyone. I thought I could move on, start fresh, and leave the past behind. But I was wrong. I've carried that decision with me every day since." "But why didn't you come back?" I asked, the pain in my voice clear. "Why didn't you try to find us? Why didn't you try to find me?" He looked away, his gaze drifting to the window. "I didn't think I could. I didn't think you'd want me back after everything I did. I was too ashamed." The words stung, but they also made sense. He had been so sure that he was the one who didn't belong, that he didn't fit into the family anymore. But all I had wanted was to find him. All I had wanted was to fix the broken pieces of our family, even if it meant facing all the uncomfortable truths. "I never stopped wanting you back, Michael," I said softly, my voice breaking. "I've always wanted my brother. I just didn't know how to reach you. And now it feels like too much time has passed." "I know," he whispered, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I can't undo the past. I can't change what I did. But I want to try. I want to make things right, Ellie. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I just need you to understand that I'm here now." The weight of his words hit me like a tidal wave. After all these years, after all the hurt and confusion, Michael was finally here. He was finally speaking the truth. And in that moment, I realized that maybe we could start over. Maybe we could rebuild the family we had lost, piece by piece. But it wouldn't be easy. There would be more conversations, more moments of discomfort, more questions to answer. But we had taken the first step, and for the first time in a long time, I believed that healing was possible. "I don't know what the future holds," I said, taking a deep breath. "But I know that we can't go back to the way things were. We have to move forward, together. We can't change the past, but we can make the future ours." Michael nodded, his expression softening. "I agree. I don't know how to fix everything, but I'll try." After that conversation, things didn't magically fall into place. It would have been easier if they did, but life didn't work that way. Every interaction, every glance, felt like an unfinished sentence, like we were all trying to figure out how to move forward without completely erasing the past. The days following Michael's return were filled with hesitant steps, awkward silences, and tentative attempts at rebuilding. My parents tried their best, but the tension in the house was palpable. Every time my dad looked at Michael, it was like he was seeing a ghost, the man who had been absent for so long but had never really left his thoughts. My mom, though relieved to have him back, was still haunted by the guilt of all the years she had spent without him. And Michael was just trying to fit back in, to find his place in a world that had kept him out for so long. But despite all the discomfort, there were moments. Small moments that gave me hope. One evening, a week after our first real conversation, Michael and I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table we had all sat around so many times before, but now everything felt different. He looked at me, his eyes tired but sincere, as if he was weighing his next words carefully. "You know," he began, "I always thought about what it would be like to come back. I thought about what I would say, how I would explain everything. But sitting here, it's not as easy as I thought. I don't expect you to have all the answers," I said, my voice softer than I had anticipated. "But I think we can start with small steps. We don't have to fix everything all at once." He nodded, but there was a quiet sadness in his eyes. "I've missed so much. I've missed you, Ellie. I've missed what we used to have. And I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The apology was long overdue, but it was enough. I could see that he was trying, and that was all I needed. "I know," I said, reaching out and touching his hand. "I know you didn't mean it. We've both been through a lot, but it's time we start healing." Michael smiled faintly, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was a start. We didn't have all the answers yet, but we were figuring it out together. The following weeks brought more difficult conversations, more moments of uncomfortable silence, but also a growing sense of hope. My parents and Michael were slowly learning how to reconnect, and though the past couldn't be erased, it no longer controlled every moment of our lives. My dad, in his quiet way, tried to show Michael that he wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't sure how to heal, but he knew that holding on to the past would only hurt them both. My mom, too, had moments of clarity. She would sit with Michael, quietly talking about the years he had missed, trying to understand his pain and the choices that led him to leave. But it wasn't just about the past. It was about moving forward, about trying to create something new from the wreckage we had all been living in. It wasn't perfect. We had fights, tears, and days where everything seemed like it would fall apart again. But there were also moments where we laughed, where we shared meals, where we talked without the weight of all the unspoken words hanging over us. One evening, as we sat down to dinner, Michael turned to my parents and said, "Thank you for letting me come back." My dad looked at him, his face softening. "It's not easy, son. But we're glad you're here." Mom reached out and touched Michael's arm. "We've all been through a lot, but we'll get through this together." For the first time in a long time, I felt like we had a chance. A real chance to rebuild. It wasn't about erasing the past or forgetting what had happened. It was about accepting it, learning from it, and finding a way to move forward as a family. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we were walking it together. And that was enough for now. It had been a month since Michael returned, and life in the house had begun to find a new rhythm. There were still moments of tension, but there was also an unspoken understanding that we were all trying. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always pretty, but we were making progress. Michael had started attending family dinners, albeit hesitantly. The first few meals were strained, filled with awkward silences and forced conversation. But slowly, we began to find our way back to something resembling normal. We'd laugh over the silliest things, or my dad would tell his corny jokes, and for a few fleeting moments, it felt like nothing had changed. But there were also quiet nights. Nights where the weight of everything unsaid hovered just beneath the surface. Nights where Michael would retreat to his room early, or my parents would exchange tired glances, as if wondering if this would ever really work. One Saturday afternoon, Michael and I sat on the porch, watching the clouds roll in as the wind picked up. It had been a while since we'd had a real conversation, and I felt it was time to finally address everything that still lingered. "You know," I began, breaking the silence, "I still don't really understand why you left. I mean, I know you didn't feel like you fit in, but that doesn't make sense to me. We were your family. We would wanted to help you." Michael exhaled deeply, staring out at the horizon. "I didn't know how to ask for help, Ellie. I didn't know how to tell you that I was struggling. I thought if I left, if I just disappeared, it would be easier on everyone. But it wasn't. And I regret it every day." I could hear the guilt in his voice, and it made me ache for him. We had both been through so much, but it seemed like we had never truly addressed it. We'd been running from the truth for years, and now, for the first time, I could see that he wasn't the only one who had been running. "I wish you had come to me," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "I would listened. I would tried to help." "I know," he whispered, "but I couldn't. I couldn't ask. I didn't know how to." We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of everything that had happened between us finally being acknowledged. For the first time, I understood why he had left. It wasn't about abandoning us, it was about him feeling abandoned by himself, lost in his own confusion and pain. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Michael began to re-establish his life. He found a job at a local store, something simple that allowed him to rebuild some sense of normalcy. He spent more time talking with my parents, though there were still moments of quiet tension. But the connection was growing, bit by bit. Each conversation, each small action, was a step toward healing. It wasn't until a rainy afternoon, months later, that the full extent of what had been left unsaid began to come out. I had been sitting in the living room, reading when Michael sat down next to me. For a moment, we just sat there, the rain pattering softly against the windows. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice unusually soft. "I've been thinking about it for a while, and I know it's time to say it." I looked up, giving him my full attention. I knew this was important. We had spent so long avoiding the difficult conversations, and I could tell this was the one that would define the future of our relationship. "I'm sorry for everything. For the way I left, for not telling you the truth sooner. I was scared, Ellie. I didn't know what to do, so I ran. I hurt you, and I hurt Mom and Dad. But I'm not that person anymore. I want to be part of this family again. I want to be your brother." His words hit me in ways I didn't expect. The flood of emotions that I had been holding back came rushing forward, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had wanted to hear those words for so long, but now that I had, I wasn't sure what to do with them. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say, but thank you. He smiled, a small but genuine smile, and for the first time since his return, I felt like we were truly on the path to healing. The following months were filled with ups and downs, but with every challenge, we grew closer. Michael and I spent more time together, long walks, talks over dinner, and even trips to places we had visited as kids. Each moment was another step toward rebuilding the family we had lost. There were still days when it felt like everything was too broken to fix, but we never stopped trying. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be acknowledged, and together, we could find a way forward. And for the first time in years, I believed that healing was possible. For us, for our family. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours.